Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the first week of what I'm calling Loire Supporting Actors Box. As you know, the award season is upon us. Uh, and, everybody's got the main character energy and they get all the limelight. They get everybody loves them. But, it's oftentimes I feel like these kind of underappreciated, lesser known varieties that I feel like you really get a glimpse of the area. You get some really charm that you normally see. Uh, you don't see some other story than the main story that's being told in every region. So, as you know, people who've been around, most of you who've been around on Montreal for a while, but you know that, what really gets my juices flowing is, anyways, always on the fringe, right? I like to work in the fringe, both in terms of the region as well as the variety, as well as the style. You don't need yet another asshole to tell you to drink Cabernet and Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay. This is kind of the box that really gets my juices flowing. I had a lot of fun putting it together, so hopefully you all enjoy it as well. In case you're just joining us now, this is what we're tasting today with these lightning bolts in front. I think is very apt for the style of wine. 2023 Domaine Jean Aubron Gros de Pine Nantais is what we're tasting today. Just a few announcements before we get into the wine. Also, did I start? Yeah, the recording. Yeah. Taste Club goes live tomorrow. So for those of you, all the Southern Chile box, the wines that we tasted last month, plus some other things that kind of spoke to me, that will all be on Taste Club. So if you want to participate, then you know what to do. The email will come out, so keep your eye out for that. Next thing is a wine prom, which is upon us. It is now 1, 2, 3 weeks and 3 days away from today. So on the 28th, last Saturday of March, on the 28th, we are having our wine prom. As most of you know, I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. We're doing it a month earlier. So it's going to happen on March 28th. It is going to happen at the same place, Development Seed, where we had it last year. It is Ian's last year of holding the space. He's not renewing his lease. So actually, the lease actually ends at the end of March. So this is our chance to party like rock stars in that place and bring the roof down. So if you would like to attend, please do let me know. I am getting head count. The official tickets will go on sale next week. So you will be able to purchase and get all that rolling. But it would really help me if I can get a pretty good rough head count of how many people I can expect so I can start planning for it, all of that. Besides that, I don't really have any other announcements. Do you guys have any questions about Wine Prom or Case Club or anything else before we get into the wine itself? Cool. Well, hearing none, let's get into the wine. You guess you're joining us now. This is what we're tasting. 2023 Domaine Jean Aubron Gros de Pine Nantais, or Full Blanche, is what we're tasting today. Let's start with a map, because that's what we always do. Bang, bang. So here is a map of France. Sorry. It should look pretty familiar by now. Many of you have seen this many, many times. And where we are spending our time is right here called Loire Valley, which is kind of the central part. As you can see, it extends all the way from the Atlantic Ocean going through pretty much the smack dab in the center of of, uh, of, of France. So it's a pretty long region. It's a pretty big region. And you all know how much I love Loire. I've always said this, if somebody were to put a gun to my head and say you could only drink wine from one region for the rest of your life, then I would most likely pick Loire. A lot of that is because, and it's kind of fitting into what we're talking about this month, which is that there are just so many varied styles and so many different varieties that are grown here. And, this whole length from Nantes, which is also on the Western Atlantic front coast, all the way into the center of France. I mean, as you can imagine, it's 174 miles long, so pretty long. And as you can imagine, it follows the namesake river called Loire River that follows through here. So it starts from here and then flows out into the Atlantic Ocean, dumps out into the Atlantic Ocean. So you can imagine there's a varied soil, varied climate, different topography. All these things really play into not only the types of varieties that have thrived here over time, but also the kind of styles and different wines that are made here. So it's a really fun region in terms of whether you are a sparkling person, whether you're a sweet wine person, whether you're a completely bone dry still wine person, red, white, rosé, co-ferment, orange, you name it. Something for everybody exists here. And another thing that really gets me about, or gets my juices flowing about Loire Valley, is that it's a cooler climate, especially as you go more inland towards where Sancerre is, which is in the central department. Actually, in fact, let me show you the next map. So if you look at Loire Valley more closely, it kind of breaks into these 4 regions. For most of you, this is a review, but so Nantais, which is where we are this week. This is a Muscadet country, which is where we are. And then there's Anjou-Saumur, Touraine, and then the central department. Especially more inland you go, the more continental the climate becomes, meaning it is really fucking cold in the wintertime and it's pretty hot in the summertime. So it's very marginal climate. A lot of vintage variations happen here just because, the temperature, humidity, everything is just very, very extreme. And then obviously, as you go towards the left, towards the Atlantic influence, anytime you're next to a big body of water, there's a moderating influence. But nonetheless, it is still very much of a continental climate with some maritime influence that helping it moderate. But nonetheless, in general, Loire is a pretty cool climate region, meaning the acid in this place is awesome. It's what makes it, in my opinion, what makes Loire pretty special. But, also the soil type, you're talking about Sancerre is over here in the center. Sancerre is right here. So Sancerre is, known for their flinty soil, silex, if you've heard of that. As you're going down more towards center in Anjou and Touraine, we're talking about tuffeau, which is very calcareous, kind of a porous limestone. There are caves that are built out of those limestones, and then all the castles that are built, white castles that are built out of those same limestones that all exist here. And then as you go towards Nantais on the left, we're talking about anything from clay to granitic, volcanic schist, sandstone. There's so many different soil types that exist here. So you can imagine the very climate, very soil types, and obviously anytime you are next to a river, there's going to be different elevations, different aspects, and different microclimate that exists because of all those different things. Again, makes for a really, really dynamic and fun place to look for wine or taste through wine. You can really get a sense of the place through tasting the wines that come from there. The region's viticulture history here, most like the Western, a lot like most of the Western Europe, it goes back to the Romans. So we're dating back to over 2,000 years to the Roman times, and also the length of the Loire River that runs through France, right? You're seeing all this river that comes all the way and goes all the way into the Rhone Valley, as well as all these tributary rivers that run from it, which means that river actually played a major trade route for wine to get all the wines out onto the Atlantic coast. And then also Bordeaux being close by as well. So it played a huge role in terms of developing the viticulture and then the wine trade route in France. But, and then we're going to talk more and more about that as the month goes on. But for today's purpose, we're really focused on right here, Nantais, which is the most western part of France, right along the Atlantic coast. So as most of you probably know by now, this is, and even the map here says it right here, this is Muscadet country. says right here, right? All these different Muscadet appellations. Muscadet Savarin Maine is probably the most well-known one to most people, at least in this country. Classic oyster wine, right? Dry, crisp white wine that's oftentimes aged on lees just to give it some textural and also flavor-wise, kind of a complexity to it. And then it's wine. Muscadet is a region, but it's also the name of the wine, and it is made from a grape called Melon de Bourgogne. And it is quite confusing because Muscadet has no relation to the Muscat grape variety that we all know. And also Melon de Bourgogne has no origin in Burgundy whatsoever. So how was it named Muscadet? How was it named Melon de Bourgogne? I don't know. But just know that don't get confused by Muscat and Muscadet and Melon de Bourgogne and anything that comes from Burgundy. It has nothing to do with each other. But the whole history here is that in the 17th century, it was really the Dutch wine merchants that laid the foundation for Muscadet style. If you're not familiar with what Dutch people drink, called brandy wine, is their kind of a fortified wine. Nowadays, quite popular as a part of a kind of mixology cocktail world. But so they have this category of beverage called brandy wine, which is a fortified wine, which means they make the wine and then they brandy into it to jack up the alcohol percentage to kill off the bacteria, to halt the fermentation. And Dutch people really encourage a lot of farmers in Nantes or areas around Nantes to plant Melon de Bourgogne to use in their production of brandy wine. And that was in the 17th century. And there was this major devastation in 1709 of winter frost, and that kind of wiped out not only Nantes, but pretty much a lot of the vineyards or the harvest in throughout Loire, the many vineyards. So King Louis the 14th ordered that the frost-resistant Melon de Bourgogne grape variety, given the preferential treatment in the ripening, in the replanting of this area, and that tradition essentially continues to this day. So when we are talking about Pays Nantais or Nantes, we're really talking about Muscadet, we're really talking about Melon de Bourgogne. A lot of that was because of devastating frost that came here in the early 1700s and the decree made by the king at the time. But now there is a different appellation on the southern tip of Pays Nantais right here, Gros Plant de Pays Nantais, which is where we are today. So Gros Plant is a local name for Faux Blanche. It's actually on the front label as well. That's probably because this grape is probably better known as Faux Blanche than Gros Plant. It's only called Gros Plant here in Loire, but everywhere else is called Faux Blanche. So Faux Blanche is also grown other places. It's widely grown in southwest of France. It's actually also the major grape variety of Cognac and Armagnac production. And also running all the way through Gascony, which is down in the southwest, down this way. All this, there's quite a bit of Faux Blanche grown here. And also going all the way down into the Languedoc and Roussillon region here, there's also Picpoul. If you heard of Picpoul de Pinet, that is also Faux Blanche. So Faux Blanche is not only grown here, but it's also all grown southwest and all the way going into the Mediterranean coast of Languedoc and Roussillon. But as you can see in the map, that is much more south, much more west. And if you ever travel from Loire to southwest or Languedoc-Roussillon, even to Bordeaux, the temperature difference between here and here is very, very noticeable. This is much warmer, much drier area. And even the Picpoul or the Faux Blanche that comes from here tends to have much higher sugar. It's much fuller. Yes, it is still a dry, crisp wine because it's a natural acidity that it retains. But just stylistically speaking, it is much fuller here. And like I mentioned, this is a much cooler climate here. So Faux Blanche or Gros Plant grown here tends to be much higher in acid, much leaner. It's kind of a lean and mean kind of situation. It doesn't give a whole lot of meat or buff for kind of body to the wine. And quite frankly, that's kind of what I like about the style of Faux Blanche that comes from here. Uh, the It was first introduced here in the 16th century, but the also just talking about here, whether it be Loire or whether it be in Southwest, the one thing is true of Full Blanche, and is one of the things of what I like about it, and that's probably what makes for an incredible shellfish or seafood kind of a pairing suggestion or pairing companion, is because the acid is real. Whether you get Full Blanche from Southwest or you get Gros from Loire, the acid here in this thing is fucking ripping. The When I was tasting for this box, I actually tasted the one vintage before this, 2022, and then that one is already ripping, like it was like melting enamel off my teeth. But when the rep was like 2023 is even brighter, even more acid, even leaner, I said that's perfect because that's exactly what I want. Like its neighbor, Muscadet, Full Blanche or Gros Plat can also be aged on lees. It is often a bone dry, a citrus, kind of white flower driven, simple, crisp dry wine. But with that kind of careful aging on the lees, made from good plots, this one comes from 40-plus-year-old vines, and there's some limestone as well as a granite that runs through where this is planted. So with a careful selection of the sites, with good vines and then careful winemaking, it can really lead to some wine with a character, not just a simple oyster wine that you could just pound. Not that that's a bad thing, but it is possible to make Gros Plat wine with layers and complexity and all of that. Like I mentioned, Gros Plat was introduced to the region in the 16th century, expanded quickly due to its high yield. It's one of the guesses on why it was called Gros Plat here. Gros Plat literally means, in French, means large plant. One of the theory why they think it was called Gros Plat was because the yield was high. So it actually because of the high yield, it proliferated. It actually grew quite a bit, but then that devastating kind of a wine plague called phylloxera came to Europe, wiped out all the vineyards, and then Full Blanche never recovered. It kind of declined over time ever since phylloxera, even the replanting didn't come back at its original kind of height that it was in. And especially as the Muscadet went in the direction of making more and more, and then as the Melon de Bourgogne and Muscadet became more profitable than Full Blanche, its popularity declined even more. So just to give you some statistics, I found this on the internet. Don't believe everything you find on the internet, but it's that Full Blanche planting declined from 15,000 hectares at its peak in 1958 to 1,770 hectares in 2009. So in what is that, 60 years of a time, we're talking about less than 1/10 left over. So just to give you an idea of how much Full Blanche has fallen out of fashion in this area. But the growers of Full Blanche or Gros Plat has kind of taken a different tactic than Muscadet. So as the Muscadet producers went producing more and more, meeting the global demand for cheap, quaffable oyster wines that everyone can drink, affordable, all of that. Full Blanche producers kind of went the other way, and they purposely reduced their yield limit on their own harvest and chased after quality. And because of that effort, actually in 2009, they were able to, the Association of Growers who grew Full Blanche, they were able to get their own appellation called Gros Plat du Pays Nantais, and that is exactly what we have here today. So it's the appellation Gros Plat du Pays Nantais is actually not that old. It's only existed since 2009, and yeah. So there you go. Just to give you an idea of why, what makes Full Blanche in this area a little bit more special. Full Blanche is an offspring of Gouais Blanc, and then the other parent is still to this day unidentified. They don't know where the other parent is. But yeah, there you go. Let's talk about who makes this wine. Is this gentleman, Jean-Pascal Aubron, is this guy. Fourth generation Vigneron, making bone-dry Muscadet as well as Full Blanche. He also makes Sauvignon Blanc from Nantais region. Muscadet appellation allows up to 3 grams per liter of residual sugar, which is really nothing. I mean, we're already in the bone-dry territory with the 3 grams per liter. For all other variety, they allow up to 5 grams per liter. But Jean Pascal really believes in bone dry, and he takes his fermentation all the way dry. So we're talking about needing absolutely no residual sugar on his wine. He's also a believer, and of course, a low pH of all these really highly acidic varieties help. But he's also a staunch believer in using as little and minimal amount of SO2 as needed. So all of his wines are all the things we talk about in this wine club, all the native fermentation with a very little intervention and as little of SO2 as possible. Jean Pascal's great-grandfather worked as a vigneron in 1875 in the exact same place where he is now. When the family's holdings were only 11 hectares back in 1875. But starting from 1983 is when Pascal took over. Pascal has bought the Domaine's holdings and brought it all the way up to 84 hectares now, which in the grand spectrum of things in the wine world, 84 hectares is nothing. I mean, it's a drop in the bucket. But for most of the producers that we feature here on 6 Foot Wine Club, 84 hectares is pretty big. So it's a pretty decent sized producer. But again, in the world of wine, that's nothing. Despite the large expansion of family vineyards, his dedication towards quality is shown through the fact that he purchased only the small kind of vineyards that are directly connected to his current vineyard. So he could keep all the fruit. All the idea behind it was that he could keep all the fruit as close to the winery as possible because he wanted to minimize the distance from the harvest site to the winery to maintain its freshness. Because to him, it's all about the acid, the freshness, to minimize sun exposure, bruising, all those things that happen after harvest. He wanted to minimize all of that. So to maintain that kind of a standard and what he wanted, no vineyard in his 84-hectare holding is located more than 15 kilometers from the winery, and they're all conjoining, all contiguous. In 2000, Pascal began employing sustainable practices in the vineyard, avoiding chemical usage. So 2 years later now, in 2002, he started using cover crops between his rows to help fight mildew, which is a huge threat in this area. I mean, as you can imagine, it's next to the Atlantic Ocean. All through the middle of France, there's a lot of humidity. So mildew is a big, big threat, but using the cover crop to control the humidity has been his practice. And he's currently in the process of converting his vineyards to organic farming, but particularly this area of Loire is particularly difficult for organic farming. But he's trying. So that's where we are. Here's some other pictures I was able to pull. So this is a stainless steel tank. So this wine starts as a stainless steel. Actually, all of his wines start in the stainless steel tank fermentation. And then he ages it on these in the underground glass-lined vessels. So this is what I found interesting was that all of his tanks are outside, not inside, especially in a place like this where it's quite cold. It is quite common to see temperature control here, just because it gets too cold to fermentation oftentimes halts because it gets too cold. So they usually put a blanket around the tanks and heat up the must just a little bit just to get the fermentation going. But the fact that he has it outside is pretty surprising to me, but he does. And then here's basically the opening to his underground aging vessel. It looks kind of dirty, but just kind of what it looks like. But yeah, so these wines, after he ferments in the stainless steel tank, he puts it underground in this thing. As you can see, these are kind of tile glass lined kind of thing. So puts it on the lees, and then he just lets it settle. So all the settlement happens, and finally, when the wine becomes clear, I mean, a lot of it is also just the temperature control, right? Consistent temperature to keeping it underground. It's not really for flavor or even oxygenation or anything like that, because this is all complete impermeous glass-lined membranes around the vessel. So it's really to keep it on fine lees. There's no batonnage, there's no stirring of the lees. He just lets it sit and lets it all settle. And then once all that lees settle to the bottom, he basically racks it off, meaning siphoning off the clear portion of the wine out of here, and then he bottles it and sells it off. So this is 100% full blanche from, like I mentioned, 40-year-old vines, 40-plus-year-old vines, all fermented in that same steel tank that I just showed you. But unlike other full blanche, usually, yes, full blanche is also allowed, or a Gros Plan is also allowed to sit on the lees. But oftentimes what you find on the market is not something that you find on the lees. You see that with the Muscadet, but with the full blanche, people usually don't do it, but he puts all of his full blanche on the lees and then ages it on the lees. The length of the lees aging or surly aging, it all depends on the vintage, but he does that in the underground glass-lined tanks that I showed you until he feels it's ready. But what it comes out to, what it does at the end of it is that it's not just this kind of a high acid dry wine, but really, particularly with his wine, what I was able to get is I get that freshness, I get that kind of white flower citrus thing that comes out, but and the electric bright acidity. And I think this, lightning bolt is a reference to that the electricity that kind of runs through here, the acid that runs through here. But that lees aging really, I guess the texture and more than anything, I get the salinity on his wine, which I really find really enjoyable on the backs of that, the citrus and the flowers and all of that. So that's what we got here. Any questions about the wine producer, the region, or any of that before we get into tasting the wine?
So this is the same grape as Pigpool?
Same grape.
Oh.
Yep. But stylistically, very different though. Pigpool to me is much fuller. It's got, Pigpool is not like a gigantic, grape, but compared to this, it's got more body. This is really like lean and mean, which I like. But Pigpool seems to be a little bit fuller. Like if this is oysters and shrimp cocktails, Pigpool is for like sardines and squid, if that makes sense. Or any other questions? Cool. Let's taste the wine. Who wants to take the appearance?
I can.
All right, Cecilia.
This is very clear looking to me.
It is very clear indeed. I've also been told, even though his website doesn't say anything, that this wine has not been filtered or fined.
Really?
Yeah, and the fact that it's getting this clear, I think it's just a testament to all of his lees aging without stirring it up. No batonnage, nothing, just letting it sit there for months, and then he's able to get it this way. He did one of the things that I was reading about him. So earlier I was talking about how minimizing the distance between the harvest site to his winery and then a lot of that is the freshness, but apparently the temperature change, I've never heard this before. The temperature change after the harvest, the more you're able to keep it cool after the harvest before you press and ferment, more clarity you can get on the wine. So maybe that's also helping here. But I've never heard that before. But that got my curiosity going. Now I'm gonna do some more research on how much truth is there, or if that's just something that he believes. But anyways, but for our intents and purposes of tasting this wine, for appearance, yes, I would call this very clear.
Yeah, I'm not at the bottom of the bottle, but the whole bottle looks pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the color intensity is pale.
Yeah, not a whole lot of color here, right?
And it's a lemon green.
Yeah.
Side of things.
Yep.
And
there's a tinge of green here for sure. Like
Yeah,
that's the only
I
first
can
things that
see
I'm
it.
actually. Yeah.
Yep. The legs don't matter. I don't see any deposits and no bubbles.
Great. Bang, bang, bang. Good job. You get to pick the next person for the notes.
Any volunteers? I think Sara.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Also, before you go on, so I guess your name is Ryan. Ryan, Shannon told me that you are a winemaker joining on the call. So I will be asking you about what I just said about the whole freshness between the grapes and the clarity of the wine, whether you think there's something that's or just some French bullshit that he's spewing. And I always say this to, and I know you didn't make this wine, but I always say that I love tasting wines with winemakers because the way we taste wines is very different. Like I'm always looking for like something good about the wine. Like what can I sell? What can I use to like talk about the wine to embellish the wine? And the winemakers are always like looking for the fault. Like what went wrong during the winemaking? How could I have made this better? If I had to make this again, what would I have done differently? So like it's like a very different lens through we taste the wine. But we can talk about that after in a little bit. But, all right, Sana.
Okay.
Take us through the news.
All right. I will say it is clean.
It's clean. This wine is sound.
I feel like I get it like a little off the glass. It's not as cold as it should be. So maybe like medium.
Mine is like here. So it's just like, yeah, about like an inch off. So yeah, like medium. I would still call this medium right now. My wine is very cold. I pulled it out like right before the tasting. But so maybe it'll come up to medium plus once it warms up a little. But right now, as of right now, I'll call this medium myself.
Yeah.
Medium intense aromas. Oof. What do you got?
Maybe some flower, like maybe some honeysuckle.
Yeah. I guess some like a white flower, some pretty.
Yeah, elderflower.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely a lot of pear.
Yeah. I guess some like green pear.
Maybe green apple.
Yep.
Or yellow apple.
Yep.
Lemon.
Yep. I get like the pith at the skin. Yeah. I get a ton of lemon on this thing, citrusy kind of a thing.
Yeah. And maybe some stone fruit. Do I get some peach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought it was some stone fruit myself, but now I'm leaning more towards that floral that you're talking about. I think it's more honeysuckle, that kind of like a white flower.
Yeah.
Flower than the stone fruit itself. But
yeah, like it's not totally juicy like they are.
Yeah, exactly. Any tropical?
No,
Nope. Any red or black?
no, nothing dried, nothing.
Yep.
Maybe some tomato leaf, but I've had some like tomato leaf candles going. So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just
yeah.
my apartment.
All right. Before we get to the herbaceous herbal, let's talk about the nature of the fruit. How does the fruit feel like you? Does it seem ripe, overripe, underripe, fresh, cooked, candy?
I mean, well, it's mostly floral. I think fresh. Like it's mostly floral to me. I think fresh. Like nothing really dried. Like pretty fresh.
Yeah, I do get some. I do get. There's nothing cooked here. There's nothing jammy, nothing cooked, nothing baked. Everything is fresh. The ripeness to me is if it's like ripe or like just underripe. It's like just at the beginning of the season when the fruits are just starting to come into season. It's kind of like what I'm getting on this thing. It's not like peak of season. But yeah. Any herbaceous? Any herbal?
Like maybe a little bit of like tomato leaf.
Yeah,
but
that's
I
right.
also had tomato leaf
Yeah.
candles going, so it may just be my apartment.
Agreed. There's definitely some touch of green, touch of like a leafy something vegetal kind of going on here.
Yeah.
For sure. Again, like I mentioned, this is a cool climate area. If anything, the ripening of the fruit is a challenge here. Frost is always a big challenge here. Obviously, with the climate change, and now we're seeing Loire wines that are peaking at like 14.5, 15% alcohol, which is fucking crazy. But in general, this is a very, very cool climate area. In fact, practice called chaptalization, which is in the wine world, you can add sugar to must, especially in a cold area. You can legally add sugar, like dump like table sugar, into the grape must to artificially jack up the alcohol percentage of the wine. That's a pretty legal and well practiced practice employed in the wine world. Obviously, he doesn't do it here. So it's very commonly practiced here in Loire. Just to give you an idea of what a cool area it is. So it's very reasonable that we would get this kind of like underripe, just kind of like a little vegetal green leafy thing going on for sure as well. Any spice, any minerality, any rockiness?
No, nothing really herbal or spicy, I don't think, but I do get like that like wet limestone, like
Yeah, I definitely do get some like
or something. Yeah.
yeah,
Right
I
on
do
a
get some
mountain.
rockiness and minerality here for sure. Absolutely. And then no spices. I mean, the winemaking here is very kind of like straightforward, clean, stainless steel to glass line aging vessels. I mean, there's no wood, there's no oxidative winemaking. It's none of that. Any secondary, any tertiary here?
Nope.
Nope. I will say, however, though, here, I mean, it's not, I won't go as far as calling this autolytic, but on the nose, maybe because, you know, power suggestion, knowing that this has sat on the lees for a few months. But there's like an ever so touch of like beer, kind of like touch
Yeast.
of like cereal kind of a thing going on here, just at the end, bees essentially. But that just made
I feel like cereal and beer are two very different smells.
no, absolutely. It's mostly still very much of the citrus flower kind of a thing, but like just at the end, I just get just a whiff of a little bit of that. But again, that just may be me knowing that this has some of these, and that's what I'm getting. To me, the lees aging on this one is much more apparent on the palate than on the nose. So, you know, I just may be tricking myself, but yeah, for the most part, everything that you called out is exactly what I smell on this one. All right, you get to pick the next person from the palette.
Good, Dave.
Mr. Talbot.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. This might be dry. Yeah.
One dry.
I will say also that this is probably the most acidic wine that we've had on this wine club, so I would call this high.
Yeah, I think this is the most acidic. It's pretty high. Yeah. I'll definitely put this on the high acid here. I mean, the acid on this thing is ripping. It's
Yeah.
like making my eyes water, honestly.
Yep.
All right. 10.
Tannin, no. I would say on the alcohol side, this is probably medium low. Doesn't taste too hot to me. On the body side,
Hold on. Let's look at the alcohol. 11%. Yeah, that's medium minus. Also, this wine's acid is so high, or I don't know if it's a function of this wine's acid being so high or a function of me getting old, but I feel like I need to take some fucking, you know, anti-acid, you know, acid reflux pills because I feel like I'm gonna get some acid reflux here. Anyways, all right, alcohol 11%, which is definitely medium minus. Body.
I would call this medium. I don't think it has a ton of weight to it, considering how it's produced. That's not a criticism. I just don't think it's a, particularly weighty wine.
Agreed. I mean, this is medium at best. I do think there's a bit more body here than what I expected here, especially being like 11% alcohol wine from this part of France in Loire, cool climate. But I think that lees aging, again, when we're talking about that kind of textural thing, this is pushing into that kind of medium. Otherwise, if this did not sit on the lees and then they just made the wine straight, it probably would definitely be a much more light, medium minus. And the fact that we're even contemplating flirting with the idea of calling this medium is all because that lesion textural thing. Moving on to talk about flavor
Yep.
intensity.
I would say medium to medium plus. This one's hard because of the acidity for me. I don't think it's as light as the body, but it's not heavy or
Yeah.
pronounced.
Agreed. I don't go as all the way to calling medium plus. It's kind of like where I was on the nose as well. It's kind of like high medium, low medium plus, but I'll probably land on, if I was in an exam setting, I'd probably call this about medium as well myself.
Mm-hmm.
Medium plus intense aromas. Oh, do you confirm everything that Sara pointed out? And
Yeah, I would say on the palate, it's even more green fruit for me than it is citrus. Like if you married an apple and a lemon together, maybe that's a green apple and a lemon together. This is what it'd be. It's really hard to get anything else out of this for me other than those two flavors.
yeah, it's a lot of like green pear, ton of lemon juice, like Granny Smith apple, like really, really hard, unripe, tart kind of green fruit and citrus for sure.
Yeah.
Do you get any like floral, anything a little?
Not, I mean, not as much as you do on the nose, not
Yeah.
from the palate for me.
Agree. It's a much more pretty on the nose than it is on the palate.
Mhm.
You're right. Like, dude, acid on this thing is abrasive. It is
Yeah.
aggressive. Any red fruit, tropical, black fruit, none of that, obviously.
Nope.
Nature of the fruit, herbaceous, herbal. Last kind of 4 categories. How you feel?
I don't really, I mean, I on the nose definitely get the herbaceousness. It's
Yeah.
just fresh to me. It's just citrus and green apple.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. Where I still do get a little bit of that kind of what Sarah was calling tomato leaf, but there's definitely some like a vegetal herbaceous greenness here, which I actually think
Yeah.
is right. Like, yes, acid in this thing is really ripping, but I still do taste the fruit. I do get flower, which gives a layer of like this kind of pretty floral kind of thing.
Mhm.
But there's also that touch of that, and it's not over the top. Like this could have easily been very green, very vegetal, very savory, very unripe. But the fact that there's a really ripe fruit and the flower here, pretty flower here, that just a tinge of the vegetal kind of greenness is, I actually think is like a really nice kind of layer of complexity.
Mhm.
And then in terms of the minerality, to me, more so than what I was talking about, the nose, maybe like Western, all of that, to me, it expresses itself as salinity. Again, that's
Yes, no, it's very, it's highly salinic, I
yeah,
think.
there's salt here, it's salty. It's like a, I know salted lemon is not everybody's favorite. It's not everybody's thing, but this has got that kind of salted lemonade kind of a vibe going here for sure. Anything else?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit more depth to it and sort of an aftertaste sense for me. And maybe that is that herbaceousness, but
Yeah.
I think the things that hit you on the face is that almost ripe but not quite ripe green
Yeah.
fruit and citrus.
Perfect. Finally, the length. How long do the flavors stick around?
I would say between medium and medium plus. It's got a little bit of length for me. Again, I'm a little confused by the acidity, so maybe that's what that is for me. But
Yeah. Yeah, I'll call this about medium as well. The length as well here. It's not super long, but it's not nothing. I mean, kind of like the flower. Again, like so much lemon. Yeah,
Yep.
salinity kicks in. Still going. Yeah,
Yep.
I'll call that about medium.
Hmm.
To me, like if I was still running wine program in a restaurant, I would use this wine as almost like a condiment. Like anytime that I could picture like squeezing a little like lemon on top would be nice. I think this would be great.
Mhm.
All right, take it home for us. Conclusion. How good is this wine? Justify it. And would you age this wine?
I think it's good to very good. I think if I was in the restaurant business, I think this would be a hard sell for a general customer, unless it was sort of a spicy dish maybe, or something with an awful lot of flavor. I think it's definitely a food wine. I think
Yeah.
it's a little too much acidity to be drank on its own, but I do like it a lot. So yeah, I would say good to very good. And I know the acid makes it attractive to age, but the freshness to me, I'm not sure that's going to improve the flavor of the wine. So I'm not sure I'd age this.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think this, well, I guess it's up for debate whether you think this one is balanced or whether this acid is in balance with everything else. Like to me, yes, acid is aggressive here. It's big. Like it is a first and foremost what hits me, but I can still taste other things on here. It's not overpowering to a point where it's the only thing that I can really experience. So I would say this one is still balanced. Intensity, we call it medium on the nose, medium on the palate, right? Complexity, not a whole lot of things going on. We got some flowers, we got some citrus, green fruit, some vegetable, some salinity, but all primary, nothing really going on. I'll call that about medium as well. Maybe even more than medium, maybe medium minus. But then length, we also called it medium. So when you take average of all of that, we're kind of landing in the average of medium. So I would definitely call this a good wine. Potential for aging. I think this wine is drinking exactly what it's supposed to drink like right now. It's all about freshness, acid, all of that. And because of that acid, I don't think this wine's going to fall apart anytime soon. But to your point, Dave, I don't know necessarily adding a non-fruit. First of all, there's not enough concentration of these fruit for it to hold out. It's going to probably dissipate quite quickly, even if there's a strong backbone. So I don't think this is a suitable thing for long aging. I don't think, well, having said that, I don't think it's going to fall apart anytime soon because of that acid and pH level on this wine. So I would say drink this over next, I don't know, 3, maybe 5 at the most. It probably won't fall apart anytime before 5 years. But honestly, if you ask me, this is the kind of wine that you drink fresh and young right now with a plate of oysters. Like, get yourself some oysters, get yourself shrimp tower, get those seafood tower, and just pound this like it's going out of fucking style. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this immediately, we were at Moon Rabbit a couple weeks ago, and there's a shrimp dish they have on the menu and that was like this to me is the perfect pairing with that.
Yeah, exactly. My rep who sold me this wine, he said he did this with blue crabs last summer, and he said it was perfect. It's like they're picking crabs and drinking wine. Good. Excellent. Let's play everybody's favorite game. How much do you guys think? Well, first, before we even get into it, did you guys like this one? Just out of curiosity. Did anybody not like this one? No? Surprising. I thought it was going to be a little more polarizing than that. But okay.
I'm definitely gonna have to go have some Tums before I go to bed, but I liked it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, this is going to give me absolute focus. But this is also kind of like an educational thing. When we're talking about these acidity, you always say, I really tend to gear towards a high acid wine. I like high acid wine, but in the world of wine, there are things that are disacidic out there, and then even when the acid is this high, would it be enjoyable? Would it be drinkable? Would it be something you want to drink? All that is really, I guess, a preference. But that's another thing. In terms of wanting to experience the spectrum of what's possible in the acidity of the wine world, I think this definitely served as a good example reference or what a high acid wine can be like. All right, let's play everyone's favorite game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy to pay for this on a retail shelf?
Pre-tariff.
25, 22, 17, 2020. All right, 22, 25, okay. 23, 28, wow. Well, this on a retail shelf would be $16. So, I mean, that's another reason why I love going to French, especially in a place like Nantais. Muscadet is, is a from his cousin, is always one of those bottles that are like never expensive. Like if I ever go to a French restaurant and then when we first sit and if the Muscadet is on the bottle list, it's almost always the first thing that I get. It's just like, let's get a bottle of Muscadet, 5 glasses is usually like, well, I don't know how much, it's probably like $50 now. But back in the days, it used to be $35, $40. It's like, $8 a glass. It's something that we can sip on while we're looking through the menu, catching up, get some oysters, and then we'll get into some real wine. But to me, full blanche, like to me, this has all the kind of that high acid, briny kind of textural thing on Muscadet I like, but there's more flower, more citrus, more acid than Muscadet, which I love even more. So if I rarely ever see Gros Nantais or full blanche from Loire on wine list when I go out to a restaurant. But if some restaurants have both this and Muscadet, I will almost always get this because to me this is to me more delicious than Muscadet. So cool. Any questions? Any comments? So again, going back to our theme, don't get don't only buy the main character, which is Muscadet from this region. Go to the supporting actor, which is a full blanche or a Gros from this region.
You mentioned that this was on the lease a long time. I thought there was some yeast taste to it.
Yeah, I smelled it. Yeah. On the palate, rather than the kind of like a cereal leesy thing, to me, it comes off a lot more as a one textural thing, that body, and then the salt, the salinity. But on the nose, I thought I smelled a little bit of that kind of like cereal, like beer kind of thing. But it's not super long. It's a few months, but the exact length depends on the vintage. I don't know how long it was.
When we paired this with, we took your vegetarian pairing suggestion of the goat cheese and the herb crackers.
Yeah.
We took it to the next level and we made pasta with a herbal goat cheese sauce and some red onions and artichokes.
Uh-huh.
It was delicious.
Lemon.
Oh,
Nice.
and lemon. Yes, Katie made it.
Okay.
It was really
Love
good.
it. That sounds delicious. Any other questions or comments? Any pairings that did not work? Because I mean, the acid on this thing is real. It is just fucking real. All right. Cool. Well, in that case, hearing no other questions. Well, actually, before I turn off the recording, let me ask the winemaker on the call. What did you guys think of this wine? What is by the way, even if you hated this wine, it won't hurt my feelings. I didn't make the wine.
I really enjoyed it, but I love acid. So
Yeah.
I'm always a big fan of high acid.
You're in the right club.
Yeah, this one fully defined that. So I thought it was really nice, especially with the pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you so actually, can you give us a little intro who you guys are and how Shannon was able to sucker you into joining us tonight?
Sure. We're Ryan and Katie Shumacher. We live in Murrieta, near Temecula, near Shannon. and we make our own wine. And we're very small, so we try and find kind of special vineyards throughout California to highlight. And our style is, really minimal intervention, just trying to get the best quality fruit that we can and letting it shine. And we've known Shannon for a few years now, but we're in a study group together because we're all studying for our certified sommelier. So we've been in a blind tasting group for maybe a year and a half.
Yeah,
And
year and a half.
yeah, I think just good friends outside of that.
Yeah, cool. This is probably a very different style of wine than what you guys are making down in Marietta or Temecula, I would imagine.
Well, and we're not buying fruit from Temecula. So a lot of our fruit comes from Sonoma, Napa. We just got Lodi. So we actually do try and do a little bit more cool climate, not quite this high acid. But I would say this is a little bit closer in style to wine that I like to drink versus like a big heavy red.
Yeah. Wait, you guys are buying fruit up north and trucking it down south?
No,
or are
we're
you guys making wine up there?
making wine at a facility up there because our production's so small. We wanted a facility that had all of the equipment, but that also had, the cleanliness standards and the enologists on site and would let us make our wine the way we wanted to without, huge production size requirements.
Yeah. Where are you guys making wine?
What facility?
Yeah.
It's a custom crush called the Foundry up in Napa. There's a bunch of them up there though.
Yeah. No, okay. All right. Cool. What's the name of your label?
Shumacher Wines.
Shumacher Wines. Okay. I have not had any of your wines, but now I'll know if I ever come
I would
across
be
your
very surprised if you had. I don't think we've shipped any outside of the state, but
wine. Okay.
it would be great for you to try it.
All right. Cool. Well, welcome to the club.
Thank you.
What do you guys notice about this wine when you're tasting it? Like in terms of winemaking or the place, or what are the thoughts that come to you?
I mean, obviously we keep coming back to the acid call, but you can tell that the winemaker really made it with that style in mind. It's very clean. You can tell it's cool climate, and it was just made to just highlight this bright acidity. And I think it's something that's really enjoyable, and you can see the point of view from the winemaker, and that's always a cool thing. Anything to add, Ryan?
No, I mean, I think the label kind of speaks to the intention behind the wine, or they reverse engineered it, one of the two.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think that label is very fitting to exactly what this wine is. Also, having worked in this natural wine world for a while, I'm getting kind of a little tired of seeing a children's water paint drawing as a label, little fishes here and there, but I guess it's got a similar vibe, but at least it's got animals, which actually speaks to the content that's inside. So cool. I don't know. All right. Any other questions? Any other comments? Wine or non-wine related? Also, acid reflux aside, at 11%, you can drink so much of this wine. It's fucking great. Take some Tums, go to town. It's great. All right. Well, that's all I got for you guys. What's up? I can turn off the recording now, and then